All right, folks. Hopefully you're back with us. We're just about to start the Q&A. Please see if you can find the Q&A button. It's usually at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and start typing your questions in there as they occur to you. I have a couple to get us started. Let me just stop the share. There we go. So I'd like to introduce our two panelists, Kathleen West and Laura Nixon, who are graduate apprentices in software engineering, having just finished their first year and are entering second year of the degree. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. So perhaps, Kathleen, would you like to go first?
Right. Yeah. Hi, I'm Kathleen. I just started the apprenticeship after 5th year at school, after attending an event, finding out more about it, and now I'm an apprentice developer on a Java integration team at Barclays.
Great, thanks, Kathleen. Laura?
Yeah, I'm Laura Nixon. I've had a different path from Kathleen. I'm a bit older than Kathleen, so I left school. I did a different college course years and years ago. But a couple of years ago, I went to City of Glasgow College and studied software development. And Barclays did like a promoting apprenticeships presentation type thing at my college. So I applied and got the job. So now I'm part of the client services team. Sorry, I was trying to remember the right phrase. The client services team, where I work on different applications.
Okay, great, thank you. Good, that's good. So I wonder if I have a question that someone has sent me in advance. If you don't mind me sending that your way. So what can teachers do to encourage more girls to get into or to stick with computing science, do you think?
For me, sorry, was that a question?
Sorry, yeah, Laura.
That's a good question. Personally, when I was at school, computing was seen as more of a boys' subject. It was just kind of aimed more towards boys. Like we did general computing when I was in like my younger years, but when it came time to choosing your subjects for, I don't even know if they still do standard grades anymore, do they?
It's slightly changed, but yeah, go on.
Showing my age, am I, Kathleen? So when it came time to choose your subjects for like standard grades and then get on to hires and stuff, just little things like language used towards girls, and not anything negative, but just it just kind of seems to appeal more to the boys, and it was very encouraged as a boys subject. So I was always interested in computing, but instead of doing computing, I did admin, just because I thought being female, for some reason, like I guess stereotypically over the years you could say secretaries, receptionists, etc. is a woman's job, which is what I did for a really long time when I worked. So I guess starting very early on, like in first year straight away, make sure that girls are like encouraged to do computing and to kind of be interested in areas that might typically be geared more towards boys.
Excellent, thank you. I've actually had a question that ties in nicely. Did it feel as though boys dominated in your computing classes at school? Maybe Kathleen, you could comment on that one.
Yeah. Well, computing was mandatory as a subject for like first and second year, and then as it went to third year, you'd still get a decent amount, like 30% of the class or so would be girls. But as it went on to Nat 5s, hires and advanced, it would drop. My classes dropped from about 4 to 3 to 1, so definitely a majority on that side.
Okay, and was that similar for you, Laura? I mean, did you see boys in computing class? I think that wasn't for you, or?
When it's hard to say because I never done computing when I was at school, but
yeah.
In saying that, I did study software development at City of Glasgow College from 2017 till 2019, so that was fairly recent. The majority of the class was boys, and like guys my age. Like I think there was 4 girls in my class both years. So like in comparison to like 20, 25 boys.
Right. Yeah, no, that's quite striking, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's bring it up to date a little bit. And so, what is it you enjoy about your jobs now? Let's start with Laura. What's good about working in tech, as far as you're concerned?
It's just when I compare it to my work experience in the past, like jobs that I've had in the past have just been, this is the task you've got to do, go and do it, and then you finish your shift and that's it. But I feel like working in tech is much more about the ideas that you can contribute, and the problem solving aspect of it is what I've noticed the most. Like, for example, some of my work has been migrating applications, so it's how can we do that rather than just dive in and like, right, this is what you've got to do. It's more around the discussion of it, the collaboration between your team members and between other teams in the bank, that like any work that we might carry out can affect other aspects and other applications and things. So it's all about, you know, effective communication and stuff like that as well, which I really like.
Yeah, I think that's often overlooked, isn't it? There's that stereotype of a programmer sitting on their own, just with their hood up doing stuff, or their headphones on. There's actually a lot of collaboration and communication involved, would you say?
Yep, definitely.
How about you, Kathleen? What sort of stands out for you in the working at Barclays?
Sort of a similar, but on the team working side of it, I landed in a pretty good team with members who are a bit more experienced, so it's quite helpful to get input from them, and just the problem solving in general. I really liked problem solving and stuff at school, so it just works perfectly for this.
Okay, good. And I'll stick with you, Kathleen. How do you find balancing? Because obviously, for those who don't know, the apprenticeship degree means that you're doing a degree, as it happens with me at Glasgow, while also working at Barclays. How do you find balancing those two?
On the most part, during the year, it's not too bad for balancing because we have it in blocks, so you get to focus more on the university side of it during that time, and then at work you generally get to focus more on the work side, although sometimes things overlap and it's less. But it's not too bad on the balancing side. It's just setting out your time properly.
Yes. It doesn't help when I set lots of little essays to write, right?
Yeah.
How about you, Laura? How do you find balancing work and study?
I do find it a lot easier because we have, like, the apprentices in the years above us do university 1 day a week for the majority of the year, but we do it for an 8-week block. So, for example, Kathleen and I will go back to university on the 2nd of November right up until Christmas, basically, the end of December, and then we'll be back at work for a couple of months, and then we'll be back at university for the second semester, March to April next year, and our exams will sort of be in between those times. So because it's a block and it's set for 8 solid weeks, I do find it a lot easier to balance things, because we're not having to like go to university for a day, then go back to work for the rest of the week and try and fit our, for example, homework or essays or reports or anything we've got to write, any practical work we've got to do. We don't have to try and balance that at night time. We can do that sort of either if we can't get it done in class, obviously we'll do it later in the day, and we can collaborate much better as well. Like, I feel like it's so much more effective everybody being in the same class and in the same environment for that length of time as well.
Thinking to the future then, where do you hope to end up with your careers, do you think? Stick with you, Laura. Let's put you on the spot again.
Like, just because I'm older doesn't mean I have it all figured out, okay? I don't know, to be perfectly honest. It's not something that I've kind of thought that far ahead of, and I know that might not be a great answer, but it's the truth. I'm enjoying learning so much, and like, so much of my time before was spent dreaming that I could do a job that I actually enjoyed. I used to hate going to work, so I used to just think, like, that's just the way life is and blah blah blah, and then one day I just was like, no, I'm not doing this anymore. So I've just kind of been enjoying what I'm doing at the moment. After graduating, I guess just make sure that I've got the grades that I need to qualify as a software engineer, and just take it from there. To be honest, I'm really not sure.
Sure. What about you, Kathleen? I assume it's a career in tech for you.
That's the plan. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a sort of high level of what I want to do, but it's sort of seeing what happens as we go along. Like, obviously, we've got the 3 years till this is over, and then seeing where I'm at Barclays, and then sort of considering all the options. I would quite like to work abroad if that's possible at the time, but yeah.
I think that's something that people don't sometimes realize about a career in tech is that travel is an option, right? And it's quite varied work, would you say?
Yeah, I think so. Like, it's something that I used to think about as well when I first started studying. Was like, I know a couple of guys that have that work in software engineering. They've travelled like all around the world with their jobs. Obviously, it just depends on what's required of you and what job you're in and things like that. But yeah, it's definitely an option, something to think about.
Mm-hmm. A question here from Gudum. So he's asking, how has COVID-19 affected your learning at university and in the workplace? It's well, we know it's had a bit of an impact on how we interact in class and so on. Kathleen, do you want to take that one?
Yeah. Was that home and work?
Yeah, you're learning at home and at university and for work.
For university, I don't think it impacted it too much because I felt a lot of the content could have been delivered online anyway. It's more the interaction between people, so that was fairly smooth. I don't really enjoy working from home at all. I find it a lot more difficult to focus because you've not got that separation. Yeah, it's affected it, but we already did a fair bit of remote and working and had all the software and everything to support it anyway, so it wasn't too big of a change.
Okay,
how about you, Laura?
The same as Kathleen, to be honest. Like, we obviously, you'll know, our lectures and things weren't really affected because we could deliver them near enough the same online. The only aspect was losing out on, for example, if we were doing any practical exercises, we couldn't just put our hand up and ask a question or whatever. It had to be, you had to message online, and obviously you've got so many pupils to speak to, so you as a lecturer can't just go and answer people's questions the way you normally would, which makes it a little bit more difficult, but I don't think it was severely impacted. I think it was good, the way that it was delivered. For work, totally agree with Kathleen. I find it so much harder to separate myself from being at home and being at work. I find it's quite hard to focus some days, especially in terms of mental health. It's been really up and down for me personally. And I think that it's just one of those things. Everybody will be feeling the same most likely, but I do feel that Barclays has had a really good system in place where, like Kathleen said, we already had systems in place to enable remote working, so it has been a really smooth transition. It's not affected it in that sense. It's more things like we used to do loads of workshops and things. So I miss that aspect of the office. I miss being able to just go to somebody's desk and ask them a question if I had, if I was stuck on something or if I had an issue or whatever. I miss being able to go and ask somebody, can I shadow you for a wee while to try and learn about something? I miss the seminars and things that used to be on all the time. It's just that kind of aspect of it, really, the more kind of social and communication aspect of things, I think, has been the most impacted from working from home.
Yeah, no, it certainly is different. Questions come in here from an anonymous attendee saying, how do you keep up with the constantly changing technologies? Do you spend time working to learn the new stuff outside of work or outside of uni, or is that part of the job, I guess?
Well, Barclays, we have access to training material all year round, like unlimited access basically. So there's a catalogue of courses that you can go through, and just in your own time, you're sort of, as part of your apprenticeship, you are expected to participate in a small amount of that, but that's not to say that that's all you have to do. So me personally, if there's something new that I'm working on, which there always is because I'm only in second year of my apprenticeship and second year of university now, if there's something that I've not heard of before, I'll maybe use that that training portal, and I'll go and look up some things. We have like a Wikipedia type website in Barclays that we use as well. It's used for loads, like documenting things, but also for you to go and look up what certain things are, like new applications or new technologies, or how the bank is utilising these technologies. So there's loads of tools that we can use. As for in my spare time, I'll try and pick up things. It depends what's going on at university for the most part. So I'll try and if that makes sense, I'll try and marry things up with my studies so that I'm not going to kind of like off in another direction, because you could just get stuck down a rabbit hole looking up loads of different things forever. So I'll try and marry it up with my studies and what I'm doing at work for the most part.
Yeah. What about you, Kathleen? Do you do a bit of tinkering to find out new things?
Yeah, I do try to spend some of the time in the evenings, just at the weekends. If anything's that I'm interested in, I'll do research on it. And the online portal for that Barclays has can be quite useful for supporting that, but I don't use it as much. I don't usually find it as useful. But it depends. When there's time available to cover the stuff, it's easier to do.
Okay. Couple of questions here that are kind of related. One from Daisy, who's asking, when you decide to look for a career, do you feel like you'll have lots of options then, in the future, I think that means? Laura?
Yeah, I guess so, because we're doing a degree in software engineering, so it's not just Barclays software engineering, it's software engineering in general, and we're learning about all the kind of, like in our first year we learned about a lot of the foundations of software engineering, like practical and theory aspects. So I think there's definitely room to move around. I don't know what I would like to do personally, but I'll definitely see what's out there and see. Like, I think in later years we'll probably get a better idea of where we want to take our careers. Later years in uni, I mean, before we qualify. Sure,
but you anticipate having options, right? I mean, even in a company the size of Barclays, there must be so many opportunities to.
Yeah, there's so many different areas of the bank that tech covers. So yeah, I definitely think there will be lots and lots of opportunities to choose from.
Maybe Kathleen, I can ask you the related question here from Michael. Again, it's about career paths and options, but Michael's asking, while you were at school, how did you go about identifying potential career paths? I mean, were you always set on tech, or?
Wasn't always, although I didn't really know what I wanted to do for quite a bit of time. I knew I wanted to do something in computing, but I didn't really have many opportunities to find out more about what the jobs were actually like, which was one of the main things. So I just assumed I'd be doing something computing, go to university for computing. But finding out about like the apprenticeship's existence sort of made this seem a lot more viable. Yeah, I knew I just wanted to do something with technology.
Okay, I think this one's probably for you as well, Kathleen, since you studied computing at school. But I've got a question here from Eva saying, did it feel as though your teachers gave boys harder work because they were, in inverted commas, better at computing science? I guess we could expand it out to say were the boys treated differently?
I think I was quite lucky with my computing teacher. There was no sort of difference between us, and we had obviously the normal problems would get set in class, but I usually finished the problems earlier, so my teacher would be able to provide extra ones, and that was just to anyone who did that early. But that was having an encouraging teacher that didn't have any sort of bias was just good on that front.
Yeah, I don't know if you can comment on that one, Laura, but I guess it's more about how it was presented to you? If I'm right, I think that the administration was actually suggested to you. Is that right? Or hinted at?
Yes, not in so many words, not like this is what you should do, but yeah, I would say it was probably encouraged more than computing in general. Definitely at college, with it being more recent, I just feel it's a wee bit more relevant. It just depends on the person. Like, generally speaking, most people or most lecturers, so I'm talking about, were really supportive, but there were a couple who were like more helpful towards the boys in my class than the girls.
Right, yeah. Well, I've got a question here from another anonymous asker, asking about the gender balance at work. What's your impression of that, Kathleen?
Well, in our year of apprentices, last year Barclays hired 17, and there were 4 girls from that, so that's about a quarter. So it's sort of similar in the workplace. I do see more guys and girls at work, but yeah, there's definitely more spread in that.
Yeah. What's your impression, Laura?
I'll be honest, I think it's quite even. I know,
that's good.
I guess it depends on what team you work in, what sector of the bank you work in, etc. I mean, we work on the same floor, but we sit in different areas. And I think, me personally, I've met and worked with and gone to workshops and meetings, etc., with loads of women. And I personally was really encouraged when I first started, because having my experience at college of there was only 4 girls in my class compared to 20, 25 boys, I thought it was going to be the same at work. And when I got there, I was really surprised. I wasn't in this team to start with, I was in a different team, and my manager was a woman. And she introduced to me, obviously, all the kind of gender equality initiatives, but I personally was like, I don't think that Barclays need this, because I feel like there is a really good balance of genders in the workplace. So yeah, I don't think that there is an imbalance.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a chicken and egg thing, isn't it? The fact that those things exist has probably helped, but no, that's encouraging.
Yeah.
And actually, on the apprenticeship degree, that percentage you mentioned, Kathleen, is better than the national average for computing science. I think it's around about 18%. So that's hopefully an encouraging sign too. Okay, quite a slightly different question here from Suzanne. Do you think that people will be getting more comfortable with technology because of COVID, and hopefully then promoting it to more pupils? This is presumably people who can work video on Zoom, unlike me. So, all right, Kathleen, what do you think about that? Do you think technology is going to get promoted to more pupils because of COVID?
I think it does depend a bit on how teachers are using technology. When teachers were using technology before, they weren't very good at all. I do think, of course, they have to learn a bit more of it now, and hopefully that does get more evolved. So I'm sure it'll be a bit more, but it just depends on how they adapt and how good they are at adopting it.
Yeah. What do you think, Laura? Is it going to put technology more at the forefront of people's minds and think maybe we should be promoting it to more pupils?
I think that it will. I think that people will see that it's not as scary as what they think it is. And just from everybody having to work from home, I'm sure there's people out there that haven't ever used a tablet or an iPad or something before, that have had to learn how to use it for things like Zoom meetings, etc. I think that the way that teachers have had to deliver lessons has probably changed somewhat. They've had to probably think of different ways to get their teaching across. So hopefully that means that they've thought more about how they're teaching and how their lessons are being delivered, how they're being received, etc. And hopefully in turn that will mean that they'll incorporate more technology into their lessons.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's see. Question here is not related to, it goes back to what we talked about a little bit at the start about the difference between working from home and working and studying. So you guys, I guess for context for folks listening, your first semester on the apprenticeship degree was on campus, traditional style, and then the second semester was online. So let me think how we can phrase that question. I mean, did you have the kit that you needed, for example, like the equipment and so on?
Yeah.
And was that big? Sorry.
No, that was it. We did.
But was that because you had the laptop from Barclays and from the university, and did you have all you needed? I think, did Barclays not provide screens and things as well?
Yeah, I mean, so we've always had like a laptop since we started Barclays, and obviously got a laptop from the university as well. So when we started the online lessons, I didn't notice anything significant other than sitting on my couch instead of sitting at a desk.
Yeah, I guess, was it the same for you, Kathleen? Did you feel reasonably well set up at home?
Yeah, definitely. The only thing was having to move a bit closer to the router to get. But.
Yeah. Okay. So what's been the most fun thing you've had? What's your most fun experience on the apprenticeship? Obviously my lectures, but if anything else comes to mind, feel free. Laura?
Guessing the references on your slides.
Yeah.
Most fun experience. To be honest, I feel like one of the things that Barclays promotes is what we call citizenship. So just like giving back to the world, the community, etc. I've personally taken part in a few different things. So ranging from seminars about apprenticeships and like trying to just promote apprenticeships in general to young people as an option when they leave school, and doing things like we did some workshops in a primary school, so in an area that I used to live in, that was kind of personal for me. It was like something I was really keen on doing, and it was about getting kids more knowledgeable around money, banks, etc. Obviously in a context that they could understand to their primary school age. But there's also a thing called Code Playground that Barclays do to get kids interested in computing and coding and things like that. That was definitely something that was on my list that has gone on the back burner since COVID and having to work from home, etc.
Yeah.
So I was really gutted that I couldn't pursue anything about that this year, but hopefully when things go back to normal, I'll be able to pick that up later.
Great.
So yeah.
What about you, Kathleen? What stands out as a fun experience so far?
Not really related to the apprenticeship as much. I enjoy the university side of it more, but the most enjoyable parts has been getting more involved with stuff at societies and the tech society at Glasgow. There was a word for that, but in particular, yeah.
Okay.
The most enjoyable part.
And do you think, coming back to Laura's point about, do you find that quite rewarding to go out and help, like, show the kids in the primary school what was possible? Do you think there's a role for you guys to play in trying to address the gender balance, like specifically, people at your stage in your careers?
What do you mean? Sorry.
Do you think that that's part of your role? Do you think that, trying to act as a role model, I guess, sort of putting yourself out there and sort of, showing that this is a place for a woman to be?
Yeah, definitely, because I feel like if you don't put women out there to do that, or if women don't put themselves out there to do that rather, then girls are going to be completely discouraged because they'll think it's all boys and they don't fit in and all that kind of stuff. So like I said, when I first joined Barclays and I saw how many women actually worked in the tech sector, I was really encouraged. I felt better, I felt more comfortable. I was really nervous about it being a lot of guys. So I definitely think it's part of our role to show not just the younger generation, but girls in general, that it's something to consider. It's definitely, if you feel passionate about any aspect of STEM, to go for it.
Okay, good. Actually, I've got another question here I might send your way, Kathleen. You mentioned the workshops that Barclays put on in the workplace for you. I think maybe Laura did, but someone's just asking here, what sort of stuff did you learn in those workshops? What were they about?
Thinking back to things like this, there's a lot of different things that they did put on in the offices. I think one of them was a weekly sort of session, maybe not weekly, when someone would come in and talk about something their team was working on, and that was quite interesting to see what people were doing in different parts of the business and sort of seeing what's used in practice compared to what you learn at university and at school. I can't remember specifics on what was covered.
What about you, Laura? Were you paying closer attention? Do you remember some specifics?
Let me think. So what Kathleen said, people would come in and, you know, like do a small demo of what they were working on and then try and explain what was going on under the hood, the more technical explanations and what technologies were used, etc. The apprentices in third year, so 2 years above us, they organised very kindly a Java workshop. So I think it was every fortnight. They organised an SME to come from another office to our office, which is Tay House, who would go through some foundations of Java. And it was really, really helpful because it was somebody, I guess, who you could say is an expert. And if we had any questions or anything, obviously he was available to answer them. And it was good because you could, rather than just learning about it in a university setting, which is quite, you need to apply it in universal terms, we could ask more Barclays related questions, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Applies to certain applications we're working on, etc., etc. So there's things like that going on all the time. There was also sessions about different roles in the office. So for example, Kathleen and I are developers, but there's also people like business analysts, data analysts, etc. So there was a lot of sessions around how things were going for them and what, you know, how our jobs related to one another and things like that. There was lots of different things that we did, to be honest, but everything was really, really helpful in terms of, obviously, me and Kathleen just learning about everything. It was good to go and get different perspectives from different people.
Yeah, I think that kind of ties in with one of the questions here, is that do you think an apprenticeship program is better than being a full-time student? Because what you're alluding to there, I think, Laura, is that getting to see stuff in the workplace and getting examples of real life stuff. Would you say that's the case?
100%. I really, really strongly believe an apprenticeship is the best way to go, because when I was at college, I was doing my HNC when I applied to Barclays, so I still had either my HND or to apply to university from first year and go all the way through the 4 years. And I was actually, before Barclays did the talk at my college, I was actually thinking to myself, what am I going to do? Because I'm, you know, an independent adult. I was older, I was 27 when I went to college. So I was trying to weigh up the aspects of doing all of that while having a part-time job and trying to pay my bills, etc. And just juggle like that kind of college work-life balance. And working in a job that was nothing to do with what I was studying. It was nothing I was going to continue after I qualified. But also, on top of that, I was worrying about getting experience, because no one hires you if you don't have experience. And a lot of places will look for experience. And while there's graduate programs, etc., I didn't really know anything about them. And it was just something that was on my mind at the time. And now that I'm in this position and I've started doing it, I definitely think it's the way to go. I would pick this every time over doing it the other way and going straight to uni or whatever, because I'm now in a full-time job that's everything to do with what I'm studying. So everything that I'm studying at university, I see in the workplace, and I can relate it all back, and it makes it much easier to pick things up. I've got a lot of support at work, so if there's anything assignments wise or anything we've been given and I'm not too sure how to apply my knowledge or whatever, I can ask somebody at work. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, I'm getting my degree, and I'll have 4 years experience at the end of it. So I just feel like it's a no-brainer. It's definitely the way to go, I think.
How about you, Kathleen? No regrets?
It's very small, but I'd say definitely I think it's better than the traditional degree. But if you know you want to do something, like you want to develop, or in that sense, I think if you want to do research or something more like the academic side, I'd probably go for like the normal degree. But from the side of getting experience and actually finding out what it's like at a company and getting that experience, so you've got the advantage over people who like go through the normal one, they come out, they've got no experience or like an internship. So you'll be going for more jobs, and then getting paid after just leaving school is definitely a good aspect.
Yeah, that helps, right? I mean, I should say that the apprenticeship it's still an honours degree, you know, that a research career would be open to you. Come and do a PhD with me, if Barclays will let you go. Sure they won't, but okay. This question's a wee bit similar to one we had before, but it is still worth asking, I think. So Amina is asking, what would you say is your best experience in your job and why? So maybe we could phrase that as your most rewarding, maybe? Is there something you've done that you thought, yeah, happy with that? Or you've made the mistake of smiling slightly, so I'll pick on you there first.
It's because I feel like I've already answered this question.
But like, you know, in your actual day-to-day job, and you've talked about how it's rewarding to go out and speak to the kids and so on, but has there been like a technical problem that you've nailed it and gone, yeah, today's a good day?
This might sound really silly because it's a tiny thing in the grand scheme of things, right? But being an apprentice and, you know, only having limited knowledge about, you know, certain things, Jenkins, an automation tool that we use, I had to migrate some Jenkins jobs and get them building successfully. And the feeling when you finally get it, when you've been tearing your head out for like 2 weeks and you finally get it working, is like no other. So that was good.
Yeah. How about you, Kathleen? Have you had any successes?
Thanks. Well, there's not really anything particular that stands out from what I do normally. We recently had a couple of new joiners to our team from like the graduate program, and one of the main things I've enjoyed is like actually somehow learning enough to be able to explain or give an overview of like what the team does, explain just parts of it. I think that's quite useful, and just understanding what the team does is definitely a big part.
Yeah. Maybe following on from that thought of sort of, you know, mentorship type role, what would you go back and tell yourself? I mean, what would you go back and tell I don't know, 14-year-old Kathleen? If you go back and see yourself back at school, would you say, yep, basically this is it, this is the right path, or would you change something?
I don't know if I'd really want to change anything at all. I don't really have anything to say.
Any words of encouragement? Maybe just, yeah, you're on the right path, maybe.
That'd be a bit strange.
Okay. What about you, Laura? Would you go back and do things differently, or advise your younger self to do something differently?
That's a good question, because I feel like if I did go back and change anything, I might not be here today, and there's all that philosophical aspect of it. But I definitely would tell myself to just go for it. Like the things that I wanted to do, like I was more interested in, we called it techie, so like woodwork and metalwork and all that kind of stuff, graphic design, computing. I was really interested in all that at school, but again, it was more kind of geared towards boys when I was at school, so I was like discouraged from doing it from lots of different sides. I'm not just meaning like teachers didn't want me to do it, like just the way gender roles are pushed in society and all these other different reasons. I wish I could go back and tell myself just to do what I actually wanted to do and do what made me happy. I think it's probably the only thing I would go back and do.
Yeah, well, that's seems like pretty good advice to me. We're coming up on 45 minutes, so I think we've got a couple of questions sitting there, but they're quite similar ones we had at the start. So I might skip over those ones if that's all right. Apologies to the askers of the questions. Okay, I think we might sort of move towards wrapping up, maybe we could just finish by asking, what are you looking forward to the most in tech? What do you think is exciting? What do you think is on the horizon that you'd be interested in getting into, Kathleen?
Keep asking these questions. Interested in. I don't know. There's not. I don't really know much about the wider areas of tech, so I'm just sort of interested in learning more as they arrive, and hopefully find something that's really interesting.
It's fair enough. That's good. That's a good attitude. Always want to learn more. How about you, Laura? Has anything in particular caught your eye, or are you happy just to see what comes your way?
50-50, to be honest. Happy to see what comes my way, but I think cloud computing and cybersecurity are always a couple of areas that kind of pique my interest a little bit. And if there's any, like before COVID, if there was ever any workshops on things like that, I would definitely go to them. Or if there was any training groups or seminars or anything, I would always be interested to hear what they were about. So who knows?
Yeah, no, that's good. I think that those are both growth areas. And we can talk about that whenever you come to choose your electives in third year. I've got one last question here from Amina. I was just about to let you off the hook, but we'll go for this. So Amina is asking, what would you say is the most inspirational thing that someone has said to you when experiencing tough times in your job or in anything else? I mean, again, you probably don't want to mention all the inspirational things I've told you over the last year, but if you can think of anything else. I have to say, sorry, yeah.
I'm trying to think, to be honest. Like, I think just it's really easy to doubt yourself, because me personally, I'm terrible for it. I'm always saying, like, to myself, like, oh, I'm just an apprentice, I don't know this, I don't know that. And it's easy to forget that, yes, I am just an apprentice. I'm only in my second year at like uni and the apprenticeship. I've still got a long way to go, and it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to ask for support. It's okay to reach out to your colleagues and say, I'm struggling, can you please help me, or point me in the right direction? So I think just remembering that you're not alone whenever you feel like that. Definitely, even in university, I've been shy to answer questions in class. I've been shy to talk to other people or admit that I'm struggling with something. I think just remembering that everybody's probably in the same boat as you, they're just not saying it. So just remember that.
That's good. I like that. How about you, Kathleen? Has anyone said anything, imparted any wisdom to you?
I don't know about inspirational stuff, but just sort of having team members or calls with sort of higher colleagues that think you're capable of doing stuff is quite nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's rewarding. And for the pair of you have to, as you were saying, Laura, like you've just finished first year of a degree. It's pretty incredible what you're doing. So, okay, well, I think we can leave it there. That's 45 minutes. You've probably suffered enough. So I just want to say thank you very much to both of you. That was really interesting. And thank you for making the time. Not at all. So this will have been recorded. We'll put it up to the website later on. But in the meantime, thanks again, guys, and nice to see you.
You too.
So I've got a comment here. Thanks, really interesting from a comment there. Sorry, that's not a question, but it's just a comment. A nice comment. All right, take care.